is Ayesha Chundrigar and I run ACF Animal Rescue in Karachi. It is the first and largest animal welfare sanctuary and rescue service for injured and abused and neglected animals of Pakistan, a platform essentially to try to give them a voice that they've never had before. As women, we are in a very unique position in our lives. We know what it's like to be empowered. We know what it's like right now, like the stage I'm standing on, as to what it's like to be able to not just start a dialogue, but to take it forward, to bring it into the streets, to actually change it, to actually change legislation, to do something about it. We have that power now. At the same time, we also know what it's like to be completely disempowered, to have that power stripped away from us, where we feel like we are misunderstood, where our voices are silenced, where we feel like we don't even have a voice. So being in that unique position, we can actually see both sides of the story. The fact that we have that and the fact that we are able to stand up for ourselves means that we have this capacity of empathy to understand those who aren't able to stand up for themselves, who are stripped of their power. I mean, all of us at some point in our lives must have felt like we have been stripped of our power. So that is something that I think all women, anyone watching this, is going to be able to resonate with. It might not be like with animals, considering I work with animals, it might not be like you're put in a cage, but mentally and emotionally, we have been put in a cage. We can feel trapped. We can feel misunderstood. Like we are forced to live up to certain norms and certain expectations that we don't wish to or that don't feel right to us. And now we actually have the capacity and the power to do something about it. Just like that, that's kind of what feminism is all about, right? So with that, and feminism came from where? An idea of sexism. It came from this whole idea, this whole divide of men and women. And with that comes racism. All of these isms are very negative, right? Hence, we want to do something to change this us versus them narrative, which has been threatened to our way of life since we've known. And with that, then I'm going to introduce another concept called speciesism. What is speciesism? Speciesism is when we believe that one species is much more important morally, physically, emotionally, mentally than another species. Obviously, we think that is us. And of course we are. We are much more superior in the sense that we are a lot more intelligent. We can work in groups. We can actually, we've made the world, we've designed the world for us. So we definitely have that power. But in speciesism, we almost feel like, which all of us are guilty, including myself, and I've learned this over time and I'm still learning, is that we are guilty because we believe that the entire universe, the entire world is just made for us. We feel entitled in a way that things happen just for us. And in that way, our world actually remains very small. It doesn't expand because we don't actually allow all the different other kinds of living beings into the world with us. And in that regard, we tend to silence them, we tend to ignore them, we tend to not think they are that important. A regular question I get with the kind of work I do is that आप animals की help क्यों करती है जब इतने लोग suffer कर रहे हैं? And I say मुझे पता है कि लोग suffer कर रहे हैं, no one is denying that. लेकिन the idea of suffering is not just limited to humans. The idea, the concept, the experience of suffering is something that all living beings feel. Animals have flesh and bone, they breathe like us, their hearts beat like us, they feel anger and jealousy and pain and sadness and betrayal and depression and anxiety just the way we feel. I know this because I have been in such close connection with animals, well, for my whole life, but so much more with thousands of them for the last 8 years of doing what I do. So when I keep getting this question, you know, my answer used to be, I'm helping both. I'm helping animals and people. I don't see there needing to be conditions attached to kindness. But I'm going to take it a step further. And the way I'm going to take it further is I'm going to say that we know the agreement is that all of us suffer. Animals suffer, all species suffer, just like humans suffer. The difference, the only thing that we are discriminating against is the fact that animal suffering is very different to our suffering. So an animal, we will, and the reason we empathize with each other and other women and girls and people so much is because something bad that could happen to them could also happen to us or someone that we care about. But an animal, if a dog is being poisoned on the side of the road, if a lion has been caged into a zoo for the rest of his life from his beautiful open home in Africa just for our entertainment, we know those kind of cruelties. We'll never be locked in a cage at a pet market made to suffer and starve. We know that. We know we're not going to be beaten to dance. We are very privileged to know that those things will not happen to us. But because we don't identify with those kind of sufferings, means that on some level we tend to ignore them. Because we can identify with the human suffering, we tend to be more empathic with it. My thing is that, I mean, the question that I even asked myself and what I really like challenging, it's not about suffering itself, it's about who is suffering and what kind of suffering they are in. So the condition of suffering of animals is something that we would never identify with. So it's easier to ignore it. And I'm here to say, why are we ignoring it? Considering we know what it's like to be in that disenfranchised position of not having a voice, why are we ignoring the voice of those who are in the same position as us? And if anyone can bring them out of that position, can lift them out, to give them some kind of power in this extremely powerless society for animals, it is women, it is us. That is what we can actually do. We know what it's like to be silenced. We know what it's like to be forced into boxes where we feel trapped and suffocated, and like that is not us. That is not our authentic self. That's not who we want to be. We all know what that feels like, and we want others to have empathy for us, to understand that what we are asking for as women, what we're asking for is basic fundamental rights in our life, to feel and be the way we wish to be without having any form of judgment. That is what we want for ourselves. If we want that empathy for ourselves, then it is our duty to also give that empathy to others who don't get that from anyone, from anywhere. That is something that we need to really think about. And what is empathy? Empathy is to feel what another living being can experience. Empathy, it's like saying you're putting one foot in your own shoe and one foot in the other shoe of the other person or the paw of the animal, and you're walking along together. It's to experience what they experience. It comes to us very innately that we're able to do. And the thing is that we have that power now. There are a lot, and this is not taking away from helping other people, helping other women, helping other children. It actually adds to our world to help all kinds of living beings that actually need our help. We all know what it's like to be judged. We know what it's like to feel like people don't see us or they don't hear us. They don't acknowledge us for the way we want to be acknowledged, the way we want to be seen. I can say this on a very personal level because I know what it's like to be judged, to be put in different categories. I'm sure all of us do, you know. This is the bad Ayesha, this is the good Ayesha, this is the angry Ayesha, this is the modern Ayesha. You know, there are so many different categories that all of us women, it's very easy to put us into those categories, very easy to label us. And so I'm a psychotherapist as well. I work essentially with human behavior, which is why I'm so intrigued by the relationship of animals and humans, and that's been a very interesting caveat of my work overall. And so when I started this work, I started with all of these ideas about myself. I was my biggest critic. I was the one to really punish myself for things I really didn't have to be punished for. I thought I was the worst person ever. And I started this, and I wasn't really thinking about it as much until I realized that animals, they gave me this very non-judgmental arena to actually explore who I am and to take away all the labels and all the slogans that everybody else has put on me, by which I was operating based upon what others thought of me rather than who I actually am and what I actually want and the way I actually want to be. And with animals, while I was rescuing them and rehabilitating them, I didn't realize at the time, but they were actually rescuing me. They actually gave me this area where I could explore myself without any of those labels, to just be me. When I'm with animals, I can be a child. I can be free of what is this person thinking, what is happening over here, what is happening over there. You don't have to think about such things. It's so liberating when you're around animals. And I've been doing that a lot. I work on that a lot in therapy with my clients when I was a therapist, and even for myself. And what happened was that, I'm not taking away from anyone else who it's worked for otherwise, but for me it wasn't working. It was seeming almost artificial because I wasn't actually getting that non-judgmental space to be able to explore my inner child, to be able to reparent her the way she needed to be reparented. And when I started working with animals, that's what they kind of did for me. They gave me that space for me to do that. They actually let me explore my inner child in that way, which is they gave me back a part of me that I guess I had forgotten, a part of me that probably, because of what the world reflects back to you about you is how you end up operating. So they kind of said, let's remove all of that and just see you for you. So they gave me this non-judgmental compassion, this unconditional positive regard that honestly no human could ever give me, because we're always so worried, we're always so filled with shame on some level or the other when we're talking to each other, because a human relationship is a transactional one, right? Even if we don't realize it or we don't want anything in return, but we're always giving and taking. With animals, they don't take anything. They don't want anything. They literally just want you sitting there and they're happy. And that's it. That's what I do. Like, I just go, Sundays are my days to be at the sanctuary by myself, and I'm just sitting over there with them and they just let me be. So it's the most open, therapeutic kind of environment. When I talk about the way that I was reparented by animals, the way they helped me learn compassion for myself, it's because of these different instances that I saw. Something along the lines of a cat who has 3 legs, who had acid thrown on her. And you would expect that any living being who had this kind of a life where there was so much injustice would become so jaded. The opposite was that she actually adopted a bunch of orphan puppies as her own, and she raised them as her own children in front of me. I saw that happening. I saw this fighter dog who was blind, who was skinny, who was beaten to make so angry so that he would start fighting with other dogs. But when I rescued him, he became the gentlest soul, and he was gentle. He was just made to be a certain way. And not just was he gentle, he actually adopted another set of orphan puppies as his own and became their foster father. You see these amazing, there was a goat, we have a goat who adopted an orphan donkey, baby donkey, as her own. And you see these kind of relationships develop, and you're just fascinated that look at the capacity of empathy that these animals have, not just for each other, but even for us. I mean, you would expect if someone did that to me, if someone treated me the way an animal is treated in our country, I would be angry. I don't think I could forgive. What I learned from animals was that they forgive like this. They don't hold on to the past. They don't worry about the future. They live in the present, and they will forgive you. You give them this much and they'll give you that much. That's the way animals are. And I learned that. I learned things like forgiveness. I learned things like strength and how to be resilient in the face of bad things happening, and how to remain positive and make the most of my life. Just like making the most of my privilege to be standing here and doing the work that I do. I learned this from them, the way they helped me build my character. I am forever in debt. And if we can actually use animals as a vehicle for character building in our society, we would all just be better off. And that is the beauty of them. That is the beauty if we include them into our world, if we make them a part of us, if we stop letting them be disempowered, if we give their power back. The only thing we will gain is a kinder, more compassionate, and a happy world.